Good Sabbath, dear ones. It is so joyful to be able to connect with all of my friends, brothers, and sisters across the world. It is a blessing to be able to speak with you through this medium, and we give thanks for that. We give thanks for this beautiful day. We give thanks for all the gifts of life that the Holy One has provided for us. And today, it is our privilege to visit with you about the next Parsha of Torah. We go through the cycle every year. We look to the Torah as being more valuable to us than the news. We think of the Torah as more of our life source, and as far as the source of our meaning and our purpose in life, than we do any of the things the government does, or the science community does, or the educational systems do, or the institutions of religion or philosophy or medicine do. Our life is tied up with this book, the Torah, the ways the creator of the universe set out for generation after generation after generation for us to walk in and live according to and live by. So here we are in the fourth book of Torah. This is the book of Parsha of Sefer Bamidbar. The words are Hebrew. In English, you will read it as the book of Numbers, because the Western mindset that called it Numbers from the Roman world, the Latin language, they changed this book to mean Numbers because Western thought is all about numbers. It's all about objects. It's all about concepts. It's all about bar charts, pie graphs, or pie charts and bar graphs and numbers. But the Hebrew does not focus on numbers. It does not focus on concepts. It does not focus on ideas. It focuses on real people going through real issues of real life and bringing heaven's energy to earth. Well, I'm seeing that we're having some difficulty. I'm hoping you'll be able to see me as we go through this process. But let me know if you're on. Let me know if you're receiving this message. Let me know if it's coming in through to you. So, blessings to you. I'll proceed as if it was. Okay. We have just concluded the third parsha, the third book of Torah, which was Vayikra. And now we are in the fourth book of Torah, which is Bamidbar. And it's from the parsha we'll read today, the discussion we'll have today comes from Numbers chapter 1, verse 1, all the way through chapter 4 of Numbers, verse 2. I'll use the term numbers because it's so common and frequently used by the Western world and by people. But you understand, I hope, that I'm not talking about a book that's about numbers. I'm talking about a book in which the Holy One of the universe, the Creator of the universe, is sending us forth into a new world, away from the huppah to live life among real people under real trying, difficult situations. And so I call this the sandal meets the sand proving ground. We've been under the huppah, we've been in the words of betrothal, we've been caught up in the romance of the divine. The Song of Solomon, the Song of Songs has been our focus for the past several weeks after Passover, as we've been counting the Omer in accordance with the instructions of our King every day, 7 weeks, 49 days. This is coming up on the 50th day at sundown tonight. We have been basking in His love, basking in His downloads of revelation, and now He is preparing to say, okay, you've received the download, you've received the briefing, what are you going to do with it? What will be your response to the download I've given you? When I put you back in your normal, mundane world, when I subject you to challenges, when you have to face difficulties, when you have to pay the bills, when you have to deal with heat and discomfort and exhaustion and labor, when you have to deal with real life the way that human life in the flesh is lived, will you remember what I taught you on Mount Sinai? Will you remember my words of betrothal? Will you remember my words of love? Will you remember my patient instruction of you as to how to walk in truth and justice and reality, in life, in hope, and shalom in your world, and bring the energy of heaven down into the world without poisoning the world the way the rest of the world does, with overwrought emotion, with anger, with hate, selfishness, with materialism, with love of mammon, with love of sensuality and sentimentality and sexuality and all the things that this world is so full of. Will you be different? Will you be a counterculture? Well, this is the challenge. This is the testing point. This is the sandal meets the sand, proving ground. Welcome to the fourth subdivision of the scroll of Torah, called in Hebrew Sefer Bamidbar, the recording, the book, the counting of the days in the desert, of the days in the wilderness. This is a real-time revelation download. We have been having a mysterious experience on the mountain of Sinai. And what revelation, what downloads have we received? But now we're going to get a real-time revelation download. We're going to learn lessons in the hard territory, the hard domain, the hard environment of the desert, of the difficult things of life. All right, so in book 3, the last book of Torah, which was Vayikra, and he called, the Holy One's call was, come to me, come to me, come unto me, come into my chambers. But that's no longer our call. Our call is now going further than that. The next step in the great call, which we'll read about in the whole book of Numbers, Bamidbar, is come with me. The Creator, the same voice, speaking with the same tone, with the same passion, with the same amount of love, with the same amount of destiny mindset, and saying, not just come to me, come be with me. Come with me. Walk with me. Go with me into the world. Go with me into the hard places. Go with me into the dark places of this world. Go and carry me with you and carry the energy of heaven with you. I'll check and see if we're still in process. Looks like we're still going. Thank you, heaven. If you are, please let us know where you are and where you're listening from and what else is going on with your life. Blessings to you. In the book of Bamidbar, Numbers, the focus of the revelation download will shift. It will shift away from the otherworldly realm of our king and his beauty realm, where Kedusha energy pulses and where divine light illumines and strobes all over us. So the place where the 24 elders throw down their crowns and the 4 living creatures sing their holy, holy, holies, and the angels and the cherubim and the seraphim all do their tasks before them, and the divine light is everywhere, shining in rainbow form, and Kedusha energy strengthening and pulsing throughout the environment. That's the environment we've been in, but we're stepping away from that focus, away from what's happening in that realm, to what I call Torah calls it the tohu vavohu v'chosek, the without form and void and full of darkness realm, the realm of fallen man, where fallen men interact with one another and with creation, where the dark energy of the unclean and the profane predominate, and where the flesh of man, the pseudo-intellect of man, and the unbridled emotions of men and women run rampant. And they cause creation to do what? To groan under the heavy burden of futility. That's the realm we're now going to operate in. And he says, the Holy One says, you have come unto me, you've come into my presence, you've come into my chambers, you've come into my wisdom, you've actually been able to pick my brain and listen to the tone of my heartbeat. Now come with me, walk with me into your world and carry the things that you've learned into that world. Well, for months we have been tuned into the mesmerizing sound of the heavenly shofar. It's been calling us to come into our King's chambers, but not just to come there for the sake of a visit, to come and to be healed, to come and to be inspired, to come and to be empowered. And now the shofar is still blowing, but the tone is changing. And the wonderful upward call to receive and embrace Kedusha, which we did receive, is giving way. It's giving way to a down-to-earth warning siren that is calling us to take up battle stations, the ones we have been assigned to, not the ones of our own making, or the ones of our ethnicity, or the ones of our culture, or the ones of our national governments, or the ones of our pseudo-intellectual affiliations, denominations, and congregations. Not those battle stations, the battle stations that the Holy One himself has placed to us, and the task he has assigned to us, and the rules of engagement. that He has given us to engage in the world on terra firma. This week's primary themes are, first of all, circle the wagons. You're back on earth. You're back in the mindset of dealing with real life situations. You better circle the wagons. What is important to you? What is the most important thing in your camp, in your life? Now, I know what you might want to answer. Your first important thing may be, your life, your money, your dearest friends or family, your profession, your career. He says, no, the most important thing in your life, the thing you need to guard with the most sanctity and with the most passion, is my presence. The tabernacle is the sign of the presence. And so what we're doing is circling the wagons, and the Holy One tells us to circle the wagons around His tabernacle, around His Mishkan, around the portal through which He interacts with mankind. This is the key. For above all other priorities, above all other things we would guard and protect and consider valuable, His presence, His manifestation, the place where we can visit with Him, the ways in which we can interact with Him, that is a number one. And from out there, we go with other things. So the first theme of this parsha, actually the whole book, is circle the wagons and defend and protect the presence of the Holy One and your interactions with Him at all costs. Second theme is deploy. Deploy. Go to your assigned post. Find the position, find the strategic place He's put you, and get there and take on the tasks that He has assigned to you. Forget the distractions. Tune out the distractions of the world. Tune out what the media is telling you, what the news is telling you, what the education system is telling you, what the institutions of religion are telling you. Listen to the instructions. Get the briefings from heaven as to how you are to navigate through these environmental situations you will face. Deploy to your assigned post and task. The third theme of this whole season is focus. After you've circled the wagons and defended and protected the presence and the interactions with the Holy One, focus on the family that you have been born into. Focus on the bloodline into which the Holy One designs you to be born. Focus on these things. This is where you'll gather your chicks under your wings, that would be, of your own family, because this is the key crucible. The key crucible that separates the people of covenant, the people of the Holy One, who've been at the betrothal chuppah of Sinai, from the peoples of the world. Because the peoples of the world do not. They talk a good talk about family, but they don't live a good life about family. They fight, they argue, they are jealous, they're enraged, they compete with each other for attention, for affection, for position, for placement. They jostle. But the people of the Holy One are designed to unify, to come together around the greater picture, around the tabernacle, and around the plan and the agenda of the kingdom. And that is the key. So focus on your family and your bloodline. Bring healing, bring restoration where there is brokenness. Bring life where there is dying. Bring hope where there is hopelessness and despair. Bring purpose where there is just wandering lost. Bring these things and gather your chicks under your wings and your own families. That's the third theme of this parsha, this book. And the fourth theme, it is, hey, listen, the Holy One may be speaking to you. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but here it is. It is about to get tense up in here. So, how are you in regard to your emunah, your faith, your trust, your sense that God is good and He is in all things and He is doing all things for good, and all things will work out together for good? How are you on that? Or are you distracted by the things that seem to be going wrong, going bad, and that are painful to you? How's your emunah? And how is your shalom? Because you're going to need your emunah. And you're going to need your shalom very badly in the desert, in the wilderness where we are going. For 11 months, the redeemed community has been camped at Mount Sinai, locked away from the rest of the world. And our precious King, the Holy One, has been protecting us from each other, protecting us from other nations. He's been protecting us with clouds of glory And while we've been under his protection, he's been downloading his instructions for how the kingdom is to be built. The great nation that he prophesied and promised to Avram will be built and will have its effect and interactions with the world. But that season of divine protection under the clouds of glory is coming and drawing to a close. Our sweet season of healing, of learning at the feet of the Master, of redetermining what our purpose and destiny and mission is in life and how we're supposed to fulfill it, all that is about to shift to a time of trial by fire. This is the book of trial by fire. I call it Zaman B'Midbar, the season of the wilderness, or the season of the dry places, the season of the desert, it might be said. And the Holy One is about to lead us into and then process us through Zaman B'Midbar over the course of the next few weeks. Sinai, our time here at this mountain has been so very sweet. Well, at least after we got all of that nonsense about the golden calf out of our system. And since then, day after day, the Holy One has been downloading wisdom and revelation to us. He's been introducing us to and filling us with Kedusha energy, pulsing straight from his throne and filling his throne room and making our hearts and lives a connected part to his throne room, an extension of his throne room. He has been inspiring us. He has been exciting us. He has been filling us with passion. He's been holding us in the palm of his hands. We started as clay, but he has skillfully and patiently reshaped us in his hands into glorious vessels of beauty and honor. Wow. And now that we're formed, now that we're shaped, now that he has defined us as to who we are, now it is time for the kill. K-I-L-N. Kill, the trial by fire. Welcome to the Trial by Fire Chronicles, which is the book of Numbers. Now, I want to tell you why I call it that, because that's what the Holy One has had Moshe tell us it is. In Moshe's after-the-fact summary of this whole season, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 2 through 3, Moshe said this to us as he was nearing the end of his life. Remember, he tells us, that the Holy One, your God, led you all the way these 40 years B'Midbar, in the wilderness, in the desert, in the dry places. Remember that the Holy One, your God, led you all the way these 40 years in B'Midbar to humble you. That was his purpose. And to test you. That was his second purpose. And to reveal what was in your heart, which is the third purpose. That was his reason for leading us all these 40 years B'Midbar, to humble us, to test us, to reveal what is in our heart. And here's the key of what he wanted to reveal, what was in our heart. Whether you would keep his mitzvot or not, whether you would meet him and do what he's doing and speak what he's saying, the mitzvot, we call them commandments in English, but whether you will keep his mitzvot, whether you will meet him and do what he does and be who he called you to be and co-labor with him in the kingdom ecosystems management, or not, whether you would keep his mitzvot or not. He's been testing you. He's been testing us. He's been humbling us. That's what Moshe said at the end of the 40 years. That's what the whole time in the wilderness was about. So Moshe continues. So he humbled you. Hi. And he allowed you to hunger. And then he fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know. In order that he might make you know, here you know these words, that man is not to live by bread alone, but man is to live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Holy One. That man is to live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Holy One. If you want to know the lessons of the wilderness, if you want to know the critical, important things of the wilderness, it's not who's right and who's wrong. It's not who was just or who was unjust. It is what are the words that are proceeding from the mouth of the Holy One. What is his direction? What is his briefing? What is his instruction? Whatever it seems like to our pseudo-intellect does not matter. Whatever it is, that's the issue. Will we keep his mitzvot or not? Will we be with him, or will we be incensed by the world and angry at what the world's doing? and emotionally unstable because of what we're seeing with our eyes, hearing with our ears, reading in the newspapers or on the internet news. What will our focus be? Will it be on that, or will it be on living every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Holy One? Remember this. The Holy One's words, his Torah, his instruction manual, his divine guidance, all that is infused by the Ruach, by the Spirit, by the breath of God, with and transmits to the hearer and the environment 4 separate empowerments. The words of the Holy One carry 4 separate power-packed energy pods. The first one is Kedusha energy. They are holy and they bring holiness. Men don't get holy. Men don't make themselves holy. There's no way you can do that. The holiness comes from the words acting out. There's energy in the words, holiness energy. And this Kedusha energy causes us to focus on the will and the plan of the Holy One and doing the specific things he tells us to do. That's Kedusha energy, the first power pill of his words. The second is shalom, a sense of well-being, a sense of working towards fruitfulness, designing to be as peaceful, as kind, as gentle as we can be. Shalom, the sense of well-being, wholeness, and wellness. Do you have these? This is what the words bring. If you lose that sense of shalom, go back to his words and let them radiate into you. And the Kedusha energy will hit you, and the shalom will hit you. The third power pill is this tov. It's, in English we read good or goodness. The idea is that there are fountains of goodness that begin to appear before you. When you read and study and meditate upon his Torah, his words, what happens is fountains spring up. You begin to see good. I know before you, all you could see was evil. Before you, all you could see was what was wrong, who was doing things wrong, why they were, what their attitude was. All you could see was wrong. But suddenly, when you immerse yourselves in the waters of these words, of the living words of Torah, you begin to see good. And you can't help yourself. You begin to bask in the beauty of the goodness and overlook, or at least put on the back burner, the evil things that you see, so you can focus on the good and bring out the best in the good. That's the third thing. The third power pill is to see good, to see tov. And the fourth one is high, to have life, to have abundant, full life, to keep pursuing that, not some form of external happiness, some form of life and liberty and happiness. That's a very Western cultural mindset. The Declaration of Independence of the United States coined those phrases, and they're all pseudo-intellectual concepts that are a vain imagination. They have no substance to them. But the high, the life of the Holy One, that which he breathes into us and then excites and brings into being and brings into function by his words, that is what we're looking for. True high. So, l'chaim, to life for you. Now, the other thing to remember is this. Absolutely everything else besides the words of the Holy One is chol. In Hebrew, profane is the way English is usually common. It's the opposite of holy, the opposite of kadosh, the opposite of his holy energy. Next thing is, not only are they words that are spoken that are not his word, the ways that are performed that are not his ways, are they cold, but they're also tohu vohu. They're without form and void. They have no real meaning or substance or purpose to them. They are the opposite of shalom. Shalom is wholeness, wellness, fruitfulness. Those are not there in the things that the world gives you. Only in the words of the living God, breathed upon by his Spirit and awakened within our souls, is there shalom. And the third thing that everything else besides his word is Ra. It is that which brings division, confusion, deception, calamity, death. That is Ra. And then, of course, the final one is they're full of death. All the things the world teaches, all the education systems, the information systems, the entertainment systems, all the science systems, the end in death. They do not provide life. They provide the portal, a pathway, a trapdoor into the realm of slow dying, slow death. The mind begins to die. The spirit begins to die. The soul begins to die. The heart begins to die. And ultimately the body will die as well. Everything other than Torah, therefore, always distracts away from the plan of God. Always disappoints the hearer. Always divides the group, the body. And always ends in slow, painful, miserable death. Bamidbar. So he's taking us to a new place. He's changing our focus from Har Sinai, which is the mountain of Sinai, to Bamidbar Sinai, which is the desert or the wilderness. Desert. Bamidbar means in. The B at the beginning, the B sound at the beginning, is the bait, and it is a prefix which means in or of. In or of a midbar, which is usually translated a desert or a wilderness or a dry land, dry area. The change in perspective is from a mountain where we look up to the hills from where our help comes from, and we focus on the majesty, the glory, and the beauty realm, to Bamidbar Sinai, where all eyes are on the desert, all eyes are on what's happening here in the heat, in the trauma, and the drama. So basically, I would say that our basic training at Sinai is almost over. Our first place of deployment will be the desert, will be Bamidbar. And we will have fiery trials in that desert. In times of fiery trial, will we remain on course? Will we remain on task? Will we keep our watch as we're assigned? Will we stay on schedule? Will we remain faithful to our King and to our mission and to the purpose He has designed us for? Or will we be distracted? Will we be defeated by the events, the circumstances of the desert? Now, the desert is going to be so powerful, so effective to our flesh and our pseudo-intellect that it will be like the lion's den of Daniel and the fiery furnace of Daniel rolled into one. Lion's den and fiery furnace rolled into one. I don't want to sugarcoat it for you. The desert, the wilderness, the dry, desolate areas, these are a lion's den and a fiery furnace unto us. And there are things that we need to understand. And there are disciplines that we need to maintain if we are by some chance to be able to overcome these make or break level challenges. I want you to think with me about the Messiah. Think with me about Yeshua. And Matthew 4. In Matthew 4:4 it says, then after the mikvah, after the great mikvah and the experience, the Sabbath heavenly download that came, this is my beloved son. After that, then the Ruach led Yeshua Bamidbar. He led him into a wilderness, into a desert, into a dry, desolate area. He led him into, after this high point, he led him into a Bamidbar to be tested. Does that sound familiar to you? To be tested by the adversary. And there are three main tests in this wilderness. The Bamidbar season will always have these three main tests. It's still true today. Your season in Bamidbar this year and every year will have these three main tests. One is fleshly appetite. Your body will cry out. It wants food. It wants comfort. It wants drink. It wants pleasure. It wants delight. It wants thrill. Their body, your fleshly appetite will cry out. In Yeshua's case, it was just turn these stones into bread because you are hungry. Second thing, the second main test beyond the fleshly appetite is the pseudo-intellectual cry to presumption. The adversary's message to Yeshua, the Messiah in the wilderness was, he said, you can throw yourself down from this mountain. If you are who you say you are, nothing's going to hurt you. In other words, just do what I tell you. Do what feels right in your eyes. Act on presumption rather than following the words of the living God, following the instructions that have actually been given to you. He never told you to jump off the mountain, did he? So this is the second, the pseudo-intellectual presumption. Fleshly appetite is the first main test. How are we doing on that? Pseudo-intellectual presumption. Boy, is that ever prevalent in the world today. Everybody says, I am who I am, so I can tell you what I think or what I want to do or what I believe, and you've got to listen to me. Well, third thing, the distraction and seduction of the world's temporal, worldly things. Mammon, but beyond mammon. Everything in this world that seems appetizing and delightful to you, this distraction and seduction is the third test. With Yeshua it was, bow down and worship me, the adversary said, and I will give you all these things which were not his to give, and Yeshua was not here to have those things. So, that's our testing. We are in this season. We're about to enter into it. Are we ready for this? Are you ready for this? Well, the answer probably is no. Yet the Holy One thinks you are, because it is that time, and he thinks he can get you through this, and he can. Have we truly had ears thus far to shema what the bridegroom of heaven has been saying to us and regarding us? Have we caught our bridegroom's vision? Much less, more importantly, have we bonded with the bridegroom king himself? Do we just know about him? Have we just read stories about, or is he more real to us than our mother, our father? Do we converse with him? Do we have interactions with him? Do we follow him, or are we just believers that he exists somewhere out there in some realm? Do we truly understand who he is? Do we understand who we are called to be? And do we understand? We don't. Do we have a clue what it will cost for us to become whatever it is he called us to be? Or, on the other hand, do we understand what the cost would be if we chuck it all and give up, wear out, and quit along the way? The cost of that is much higher than the cost of doing what he's called us to do. So, can we say our Baruch Hu? Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. The opening lines of Sefer Bamidbar and Parsha Bamidbar, obviously, are Numbers 1 through 2. In Hebrew, I'll read the first lines, and then I'll I'll try to give you a translation into English in my words. The Hebrew's first phrase is Vayadaber Adonai el Moshe, and the Holy One spoke to Moshe. B'midbar Sinai be'ohel moed. B'midbar Sinai be'ohel moed. In about the thorn bush desert, the desert of the thorn bush. In of and about around the tent of meeting. B'shana hashanit letzeitam me'eretz Mitzrayim. In the second month, following the great emergence from the land of Egypt. Here's the words. Those were the preparation. Here's the first words of this parsha, of this book. Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Israel. Let me read it again in Hebrew. Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Israel. English. Lift up the head of the entire witness throng that is B'nai Israel. Lemishpektotam levet avotam. Into their families. Unto their fathers' houses. B'mispar shmot kol zakar legugatim. And inscribe the names and identities for each male by and for their roles. Okay, Bamidbar Sinai. That's where this whole thing is going to start, and that's where this entire book will be functioning. Except we're going to leave Sinai. We're going to have another Bamidbar. We're going to go desert by desert, wadi by wadi, watershed by watershed, through the desert all the way to the overlook in Moab, overlooking the land of promise. So what is a desert? What is a dry wilderness? What is Midbar? And why does the Holy One use the Hebrew language that refers to what we know as the desert or the wilderness as Midbar? Midbar comes from the word dabar, which means to buzz, to sound, make a sound, to vibrate, to speak, to subdue, to put things in order, to lead sheep along a pasturage route by virtue of being a shepherd and having the shepherd's mode of being who he is, make the sheep follow. Midbar, Bamidbar, and in this process, why is that what he calls a desert? Well, the Midbar is usually defined as a dry and an arid area The sages actually say it was an area with less than 200 millimeters of rain per year. That means it has very scarce vegetation and few, if any, human occupants, because without vegetation, human occupation is not possible. But it also does have diverse animal species that have learned how to live in that situation. So this is a midbar. In an ancient Middle Eastern shepherding, leading flocks through such an area required that they know the water sources, know where the water was, because every day at noonday the flock had to be watered. So all the pasturage lanes had to be based upon water, upon a source of living, life-infusing, energy-releasing goods that could be provided to the sheep along their route. Well, that's what he's doing with us. That is why he calls it Midbar, because he is going to build our travels around water, around the places where we will find watersheds. That's why all the deserts are referred to by watershed names. Bimidbar Sinai, Bimidbar Zin, Bimidbar on down the road to Moab. Okay. The water-based geography. Now, the real water that we're dealing with is the water from the rock, but even beyond that is the waters of the living river, living water from heaven. So he says that we're going to find physical water on the earth, but you realize it's representing spiritual water from the heavens. Wilderness region number 1 is the watershed of Sinai, the area that all the water that does fall, whenever there is a little bit of rain, where does it flow? It flows downward into the Wadi Sinai. And that is the watershed, the first watershed we will deal with. That's the place of Kibrot HaTa'ava, the graves of desire. That's where the quail, we'll get the quail, and that process will take place. Wilderness region number 2 will be the watershed of Wadi Paran. We will spend a lot of time in the Bamidbar Paran. Paran is a place of Kadesh Barnea, the place of the 10 spies and the reports of the spies and the aftermath, the bloody aftermath. It's also the place of Korach's rebellion. The wilderness region number 3 will be the watershed of Wadi Zin. Tzin would be the English way of transliterating that. Sin. It's the place of Miriam's death. It's the place of Me'i Meribah, where Moshe will prove that he is not capable of leading us into the promised land by striking the rock in deliberate disobedience to the words of the Holy One. He will take presumptively upon himself, like the adversary tried to get Yeshua to do. Take presumption upon himself, and he will do things that were not spoken for him to do, and do the opposite of what was spoken for him to do. Wilderness region number 4 that we'll deal with in this book is the watershed ruled by Edom. Edom, as it's often said, the descendants of Esau. This watershed is a vast area that is very hostile to us. We'll have that region there. Then we'll have wilderness region, the watershed of Wadi Kadimot. Whenever we start turning east, this is where the water shifts around the Dead Sea, the Jordan Rift Valley. The waterways begin to shift the different directions. And we go Wadi Kadimot. This is the place, Mount Hor, where Aaron passed away, where we've suffered the raid by the king of Arad and his people, and where Moshe decided to send messengers up into Moab to the Amorite kings Sihon and Og, seeking passage on the way to the promised land. Of course, it was denied. Then wilderness region number 6 will be the land of Moab itself, where we have our wars with the Amorite kings when they attack us and we can't do anything but fight. And then we'll have to deal with the Moabi Midianite conspiracy, Bilaam, and the false prophecy, and the prophecies of the prophetic times of the end of days, and the occult that we will face at the end of days. Well, there are 7 types of lessons to be learned in covenant life, and they have many levels each. And so we keep repeating the cycle every year so that we learn the 7 lessons at different levels each year. Each of the 7 lessons must be learned each year, but we learn it at different levels because we have built upon the foundations we've learned in the Torah. The first kind of lessons we learned of life are lessons learned in household and family drama. Household and family drama. This is the story of Adam through the story of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Family drama. This is where you learn the first kinds of lessons. So it is with us. As we grow up in a household, as we're children, as we're competing with other children, or as we're dealing with education systems and we're dealing with institutions and we're trying to figure out who the world we are. These are the household family drama lessons that we learn. These will either be for kingdom benefit or they will be wounds and scars that we endure. Lessons learned through the household and family drama. The second kind of lessons, the second phase of lessons we learned, are lessons we learned through captivity and bondage, manipulation by other people, oppression by other people. When we fall into things that we thought were going to be beneficial to us, like the Israelites did going to Egypt as Joseph, under Joseph's invitation. They thought it was all going to work out well, and it did for a while. And that's how we get into captivity. That's things that look good on the outside, jobs, institutions, associations, groups, ethnicity combinations, and movements. We think these are going to look good, but they're always turn out to be captivity, manipulation, and bondage. And we learn lessons through that captivity, manipulation, and bondage. We learn lessons like Yaakov did in Laban's house, like Israel did in the house of bondage in Egypt. And then the fourth kind of lessons we learn are those that are learned in the process of breaking free and starting over. Breaking free of the bondage, breaking free of the manipulation, breaking free of the oppression through the Holy One's intervention, and then starting over, but with nothing. These are the important lessons, the third type of lesson. The fourth type of lessons is lessons learned on the mountain. Lessons learned. We do this every year. We go through beginning at the middle of the book of Exodus, so chapter 19. We're at Mount Sinai. We spend 11 months. We spend of the physical year of the year of our departure, and then we every year we spend several months at this mountain reading for the second half of the book of Exodus, all the book of Leviticus, and the first 10 chapters of this book of Midbar. Lessons learned on the mountain. Have you been learning lessons on the mountain? The next kind of mountain is where we are now. The next kind of lessons that we learn are where we are now. The lessons learned in the desert. Lessons learned in the wilderness. These are important lessons to us. These are sandal meets the sand, rubber meets the road, real life lessons that we learn in dealing with the wilderness. Then beyond that, lessons we will learn at the plateau that overlooks our long-awaited destination. That's just when we get to the plains of Moab. And every year we go through this process. And what happens in the book, as we're reading in the book, happens also in our lives. We see we're on the precipice. We see dimly, through a veil, as it were, across the valley, we see there is a greater place for us to be. And finally, there are lessons learned in the crossing over process. Well, these are the types of lessons we are called to learn each year. We are approaching Zeman B'Midbar, the season of the wilderness. It is a season of journeys. It is a season of transformations. It is a season of challenges. It is a season of transitions. We're supposed to reconnect with, in this season, and assess and begin to deal effectively with the tikkun needs, the repair needs, the healing needs of our assigned families and bloodlines. Not to carry grudges from the past, not to carry wounds and scars from the past, not to be continually repeating the sad story of what happened to us in our father's house or the house of our brethren or our friends in the past. Look, that does not discount the pain that we suffer. What it means is that this is a season for getting over that, getting beyond that. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen with a magic touch. It happens by discipline and working with the Holy One through this and seeing a bigger picture that is more than how bad we were treated, how victimized we've been, how traumatized we are, how much we have been hurt. We have tikkun needs. Our family has tikkun needs. They need to be healed. They need to be restored. Our bloodline needs to be repaired, where there is a light in going into the world from it, where there is a blessing to all the peoples and families and nations of the world through our bloodline. And perhaps it hasn't happened in the past several generations, or maybe ever. But this is a new season and a new time, and we can become the harbingers of healing through our bloodlines. The second main thing of this focus this week and month will be embracing our kingdom identities. Not our identities through our ethnicity, not our identities through our culture, not our identities through our education systems, our class, not through our gender, not through any of the superficial levels that calls us to think who we are. No, we are sons and daughters of the kingdom of heaven. We are called to be his royal ambassadors to the world. Whatever our ethnicity, whatever our gender, whatever our background, our training, our education, our class, economically, whatever all these things are, doesn't matter. We're going to be unified in one thing. This is our season to get over all that division. Even though we're different in some ways with regard to the way we think or the way we talk. Get over all that stuff and start focusing on what our kingdom identity and our mission really is. A third thing this is a season for is learning to walk in our covenant callings. And that will have to happen through, actually as a result of, intense resistance and deep, dark challenges. If we don't overcome, we will not walk in our covenant callings. Our covenant callings require maturity, and they require perseverance, and they require us to actually have won some battles and gotten through and over some stuff. Otherwise, we're just lost in the world. And the final thing this is a season for, is taking those critical first steps in the direction of our new creation destiny, beginning to impact the world and the place around us, making the world around us, even the desert floor, even the dry, desolate places, a better place for us being there. Isaiah 35, like water coming forth and causing the desert to burst into bloom, may it be so with us. Now, there are certain things that we'll have to deal with in this season in the Bamidbar, in the fire trials. The first thing is very simple: heat. The season that we're in is this in the northern hemisphere, at least, and I bless you guys in the southern hemisphere who are dealing with the opposite, is heat. And heat is becoming more and more sustained, more and more oppressive. And it begins to wear on the human flesh. It begins to wear on the human spirit. It begins to wear on us. So, hello, long, hot summer. You've noticed it. I mean, everybody's tense in the heat. Everybody begins to be have their emotions on their sleeve, especially if they're not subjected to the protocols and the disciplines of the kingdom. They get all upset about everything. And then you see shootings and people blame this or they blame that. Here's the deal. It's the heat. It's the fact that whenever difficult times come and it ramps up as far as the heat goes, people begin to act out. They talk out. They begin to have family drama. They begin to threaten one another and react violently to things going on in the world. This is part of the season we're in. Please don't be distracted by that. And don't let yourself get caught up in it. Take a deep breath. Hold fast to the words of the living God. Hold fast to his promises and your belief in who he is. Trust in who he is. Your emunah and your shalom. Hold fast to that and take a respite through the heat. The second thing that we have to deal with in this season, the season of Bamidbar, is deprivation. Sensory deprivation. We'll actually sense hunger and thirst in the narrative. They begin to hunger and thirst, and they have a lack of creature comforts. Well, you look around you in the world today, we have food shortages, we have these things are happening around us. Water's not pure, not clean. We have, boy, do we ever have the inability to get creature comforts. Well, this deprivation, heat and deprivation, are the first basic two challenges, stress generators of the survivor training that we're undergoing. The Holy One knows this. The Holy One knows we're going through this, and he's allowing it to happen because he knows this is the way we can grow. If it doesn't kill us, it will make us stronger. The third thing, beyond heat and deprivation, is exhaustion. Just the kind that wearies the soul as well as the body. We will seem like we're not getting anywhere. We'll keep having to do things. Things come up, emergency after emergency, fire after fire has to be put out, and we just never get our rest. That will be the sense. Heat deprivation, heat and food deprivation, then exhaustion, and then we have the natural result of all that is a camp infected and polluted by toxic thoughts and toxic speech. What you find out is after a time of heat, after a time of deprivation, after a time of exhaustion, people start letting their emotions and their bad thoughts, their evil thoughts, their vain imaginations, their anger, their frustration come out. They come out in the way they hold themselves, in the way they use their facial expressions, the way they roll their eyes and cross their arms and toss their shoulders, heads on their shoulders, and the way they talk, and the profanity that comes out of their mouth, and the insults and the accusations and the labels and the hate speech that comes out of their mouths, and they call it, truth. It's not truth. Truth has to have a tone of truth as well as the substance of truth. So the camp infected with and polluted by toxic thought and speech, and boy, is it addictive. Once it starts, it's hard to hold on to your shalom and say, no, I'm not going down that negative road. So after the heat, the deprivation, after the exhaustion, and the camp being filled with and polluted by toxic thought and speech, then the mind games began. Everybody begins to overthink and overanalyze everything. Everybody gets into conspiracies and thoughts and why. And some of them may be true, but this is not what we're called to do and be. Mind games begin to be played, and mind games are so seductive. We love to play mind games because they allow us to escape reality or responsibility. We can just blame other people for what's going on. And we don't have to have any solutions. We just have to have the discernment to know what's wrong and tell everybody what's wrong. That's the mind games that people play in this summertime season. And then there are scandalous failures of leadership. Yes, leadership falls and fails us. We human beings who lead are going to fail and falter in front of us. And we will see scandals. We will see momentary lapses. We will see lack of statesmanship. Oh, that will be an ugly time. And if we were relying upon human leaders, human governments, human positions of authority to somehow get us through this process, we will be of all men most miserable, because it is not going to happen. Your scientists will fail you. Your doctors will fail you. Your government leaders, of course, will always fail you. They don't do that. They don't do life well. And your education system will be a total disaster and will be uneducating, diseducating, miseducating as opposed to educating you. Failures of leadership will be rampant. Unsolicited wars will take place. Some wars will be with one another, within our own group. Others will be wars with outsiders, and there will be pain, and there will be suffering, and there will be casualties. There will be rebellion within our own ranks, and there will be sabotage, and then there will be the sting and the stench of death. We will lose loved ones. We will lose parents, siblings, children, grandchildren. We will lose children. We will lose lovers. We will lose leaders. We will lose masses of people. It's just the stench, the power of overwhelming numbers of dead people will shock us. That happens every summer. There will be delay in the promises. There will be bitter disappointment that we will not see what we were hoping to see when we were hoping to see it. These are the challenges of the wilderness, the challenges of the desert. Are we up for this? How can we survive? Trust the words of the living God and stay focused on and meditating on the words, and don't let the emotions or the attitudes run rampant. Well, but we're not through yet. Creation will seem to turn against us. It will seem it's so subjected to futility by the negativity around us and the death around us and the abominations that are being done by human beings, that creation will seem to turn against us. There will be serpents in the wilderness, fiery serpents come forth in the book of Numbers. But in our lives, what we see, we'll see hurricanes and tornadoes, and we'll see the creation, everybody worried about climate. And because you see the earth is turning on us because of the perversions that we are inflicting upon it, the futility. But this can be healed as well. And then we'll find ourselves being surrounded and mocked and harassed and threatened and cursed and attacked by enemies that are bigger, by enemies that are stronger, by enemies that are better armed, by enemies that are better trained for battle, and enemies who are allied against us. That will happen in this summertime. We will feel like the anti-Messiah, the anti-kingdom people will be winning. It will not be that way, but it will certainly appear that way. They will destroy themselves. Remember that. There will also be intense episodes of interpersonal drama if we let it happen. if we let ourselves get caught, they will happen around us. People around us will be angry about things, and there'll be all sorts of accusations throwing around, and controversies and debates, and arguments, and even fights, and shootings, and things will happen around us. Episodes of interpersonal drama. And also intertribal conflict. We will see groups aligned against groups and movements against movements. And these sorts of things happen like every year this time at some level or another. Prepare yourselves. Steel yourselves against it. Don't let yourself get caught up into it. Remember, in the season of the Midbar, what is the test? Will you follow my mitzvot? Or will you shema my mitzvot? Or will you not? And in other words, will you live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Holy One, or will you live according to your feelings and your attitudes and your ideas and your concepts and your pseudo-intellectual beliefs about this justice and the righteousness about things like that and morality? Or will you live by the words of the living God? We will deal with the three seductions of Yeshua's wilderness. We will deal with sensual idolatry and mammon. We will deal with sudden wealth that demands attention, energy, defense, and husbanding. That will be what we deal with. All right. Basically, to conclude our little time that we have here to commend this book to you and this parsha to you, I will give you just a brief outline of what we're going to talk about. First, I'll give you three alliteration type of outline. The first part of the outline is the season of strategic redefining who we are. The second is the season of strategic realigning. So we got defining and aligning. I'm just using this to alliterate to help you to remember. The season of strategic redefining, the season of strategic realigning, and the season of strategic reassigning. So we got a defining, aligning, assigning. I know it may sound trite, it may sound silly, but I hope it will help you remember. Now, in the season of strategic redefining, chapter 1 of this parsha, the nature and scope of the call will be defined. The call is to lift, first one is to lift your heads. Lift your heads. Keep your heads up. Don't let your heads be drawn down by despair or depression or by fixation upon what's happening around you. Keep your heads lifted. It doesn't say take a census. It says lift the heads, and there will certainly be certain things that take place as you lift your heads. And the second thing is that the first crucible, the first test of lifting your heads and keeping your heads lifted will be to be reconnected with your family, your father's house, your brothers, your sisters, your siblings, your mother, your father, if they're still alive, your clan, the people of your clan, the people of your tribe, and you are going to have to deal with this crucible. The old wounds and scars, the old pecking orders, the old ways of looking at things, the patterns that you got into by virtue of interaction, those have to be rethought, readjusted, rechallenged. This is the tribe, clan, father's house crucible, the season of strategic redefining. And third, in this season of redefining, will be the establishment of a tribal, clan-based baseline. We will start with where we are, and now we will see the future hope will tell us what our tribe will accomplish or not, what our clan will accomplish or not, what our family's father's house will accomplish, what our bloodline will accomplish and will not. The baseline will be set in Numbers chapter 1 when the numbers actually are given. Now, that's not just numbers, though. That's how the houses are divided, and how they arranged, how they work at peace together. The second season is strategic realigning, chapter 2, and that focuses on the centrality of the Mishkan, the throne room, the presence of the Holy One, as being our healing chamber, being our law library, our place of going where we not only do we heal, but we learn. And we realign our behavior and conduct according to kingdom protocols. Second thing about the season of realigning is we will begin to learn to muster around assigned standards and ensigns and banners. We will learn what we muster with, what draws us, what calls us together. And we'll learn those things. The third thing is we will break down into task assignments. Some will be vanguards and be in the front, the forerunners. Some will be protectors on the southern flank. Some will be palace guards. Some will be rear guards. Some will be on the northern flank. We'll face different aspects of the humanity. We will all cooperate together to bring about the plan of God. And in the season of strategic reassigning, we'll see that each of our clans has some responsibility with regard to keeping the Kedusha protocols and portals open, the ways in which heaven's energy can continue to come to earth. No matter what's going on around us, no matter what challenges we face, those will be a priority to us. Well, it's time to go. It's time for me to break off this meeting, go next door, have a time of fellowship with my friends at the Biblical Lifestyle Center. I've enjoyed our time together. I pray if you haven't already dropped a note, let us know who you are and where you're viewing from, that you will do so. Even if you do so by watching this afterwards, either on Facebook or on YouTube. Just let us know who you are. And any comments, any questions, any prayer requests that you may have. I understand you're going to be going through some stuff, and your family is, and your nation is, and your community is over the next few months. If we need to cooperate and work together, let's try to do the best we can. Let us know what your needs and your struggles are. Now, that being the case, before I go next door, I want to thank you for joining in. Thank you for being with us. It is such a pleasure to be part of a worldwide movement of the kingdom of heaven, awakening people to the Torah, to the new way of life, which is actually the ancient paths of Torah. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.